Hello, everybody. Welcome to Roundtable. Coming to you live from Beijing. I'm your host, He Yang, joined by Huang Shen and Nila. Good as always to have you, our dear listeners, with us. We have some fascinating topics for discussion today and every day. On today's program, do employers today really prefer to hire STEM graduates as opposed to the liberal arts graduates? Well, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So we'll get into that. And Roundtable's Heart-to-Heart segment is coming your way. That's when we answer the voice questions from our listeners. You can find us on Apple Podcast at Roundtable China. Rate and review us. You can also send us an email or a voice question to ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com. That's when we get to answer your voice questions in our Heart-to-Heart segment. Yes, but now on Roundtable, as we start today's conversation. Is it true that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM graduates are more popular in the job market? And why is it still important to study liberal arts subjects? Let's take a look at the latest report on China's labor market for some answers. Well, the report mentions a structural contradiction in the job market today. What does it signify?
This may sound like a very vague and ambiguous term, but we can take a look at this term through some figures and also the explanations. Because recently, most of the students in campuses and especially in universities, they started to enjoy their winter break. And with the end of the semester, the full swing of autumn recruitment fair has also come to an end. And according to the statistics of the Ministry of Education, this year the number of college graduates in 2020 is expected to reach 8.74 million, an increase of 400,000 on a year-on-year basis. And this figure will reach a new high, and the employment situation is still grim. However, some college students found that their major was not that difficult to find a job as their classmates or their peers complained. They could easily secure several employment offers at the same time, and some other surveys pointed out that the employment of college students now presents a structural contradiction. So this term is specifically refers to the change of social environment and the development of emerging industries which have led to the shortage of science and engineering talent, also created a surplus of graduates of liberal arts. So put it in a simpler way, it means that nowadays we can see a very awkward situation is that in the job market, we're in a shortage of STEM major students, but at the same time, for the graduates from the liberal arts majors, it's very hard for them to find a decent or satisfied job position.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly an employment situation that is very tough, and for some people, I suppose. But if you're one of those STEM graduates that happened to get your degree this year, then it looks like a really bright prospects that you could enjoy. So what do you think about all of this? I guess the major trend that is going on right now in employment.
I think this could be also coupled with the rise of social media, where a lot of young people these days, they look at, traditional STEM career choices as very difficult, because as we grow up, we've grown up being told, if you study mathematics, if you have to go into these STEM majors, then you have to work hard, you have to spend a lot of time and energy working hard. And a lot of young people these days do not want to be, cocooned or feel pressured into doing something. And I think when you look at the connection with social media also, the fact that they know you don't really have to study hard. You can actually go out there and, start something of your own, and also the rise of gig economy. So you see a lot of people, a lot of young people these days wanting to go into, the liberal arts because it's much easier. And hence, when that happens, it turns out like we've got a surplus of graduates and we have less jobs. And whereas those students who are lucky enough to go into technology, engineering, science, mathematics, they have the opportunity because these industries want more and more students, are looking for more and more people to employ. but they don't have so many students who are taking on that. So I think it's just a lack of balance, and I think maybe a lot of students these days need a little bit of guidance in terms of career choices and which path to follow.
I find it's interesting because even like dating back to my school age, I think at that time people were thinking about STEM majors were more popular than liberal arts, because we have a very old saying, if you can nail math and physics and chemistry, there's no challenge for you to explore the big world. So in this way, I think back to old days, Chinese students still prefer like STEM majors compared to liberal arts majors, because we can see that if you are a student of the STEM major and it's a very specific major and it's very practical, and you just like dig into one specific field and it's very, very professional. But for liberal arts, the problem of liberal arts majors is that they're very vague, and it requires more maybe communication skills or those intangible like skills. It's not that concrete, and you cannot like just give a definition very clearly. So it's more about the comprehensive skills you mastered at school, but maybe you have a focus, but not as it can provide you the expertise as the students from the STEM majors. And I think another trend is because nowadays, if you check out the most influential or the popular companies in China, most of them are tech companies. They're like internet companies, or they are the companies focus on technologies. So with this job prospects, more people are being lured to the tech or like other STEM majors. But that's the reason why I'm so surprised at why they're still in a shortage of STEM like graduates, because it seems like this has been a trend for many years. We know like maybe people in programming and in math or in engineering, they have a better job prospects after they graduates. So I don't know why they're still in shortage of them.
But then at the end of the day, you can also have these a lot of tech companies, engineering companies. But when you look at perhaps majority of the employees in that companies, they're not STEM majors. They usually are liberals. They probably have a lot more salespeople and marketing people and guest relations kind of people. Those are the kind of job that art liberals tend to go for. So at the end of the day, I think with today, with social media having an influence on young people, they look at themselves and they're like, why would I want to study so hard and spend so many years in university? Yes, it's an attractive field, but the amount of work you need to do is much harder when you could still work for that particular company you want to work for, but you go for a much less intensive degree. And I think in that case you tend to see, yes, students know if I took a STEM major, then my prospects are much better, but they don't want to just be all about academics, because a lot of these subjects are more academics. When you are in the liberal arts, it's a little bit of fun and a little bit of study. So you get out of university when you've sort of lived a less intense life compared to somebody who was studying maybe IT or something like that. And at the end of the day, you look at the prospects. Both sides have got transferable skills. You can be an engineer, but yes, you still got those transferable skills you can transfer, like communication. But when it comes to liberal arts, I think a lot of companies these days, they just don't want yes, they can have innovation, they can have the engineers to make the products, but if they don't have somebody to sell that product, then that company will not exist. And I think a lot more young people perhaps prefer like I said again, the less intensive side of it all.
Okay, so for anybody who's a professor of liberal arts subjects, or lots of the graduates of liberal arts subjects, I think they would be pounding their fists on the desk saying, hey, what we study is not that frivolous, Nila. Can you give us a couple of examples of liberal arts subjects, first of all, so we can sort of zero in on what we're talking about?
I think if you studied, like if you're an English major, you're likely, when you go out there, your companies now are becoming very multinational. They will see you as somebody who can communicate well, because and you can express yourself well. And normally when you can't express yourself well, you are also very confident. And if you're very confident, you're able to learn any skill, and you're ready to learn new things. And also, when you look at companies these days, they're very the fact that they want to expand their horizons into other markets in different countries. If you've got great communication skills, then they're more likely to see you as somebody who's open-minded in terms of traveling. Engineers are very structured in the way they think, very linear in the way they think. So it's harder for a lot of companies to sort of say, okay, yeah, of course they need engineers, but at the end of the day, I think it's much more marketable these days if you're looking for an employee who's very very flexible, and an employee that can be placed in any market and still thrive.
Interesting points you make, Neela. I do find that quite fascinating. I think here, well, definitely a few things are going on. In terms of what Huangshen, you pointed out of, and also, I think, bear in mind, we work in the media industry and we're constantly keeping a watch on what's new, what's happening with the younger generation, the older generation, or what's society's pulse. So maybe for us, we feel that the STEM subjects or the promising career future of STEM graduates, it seems to be something that is sort of, beating an old horse kind of thing. But actually, it's only a trend that's been going on for maybe 5 years or maybe a little bit more than that, since all these tech companies have become so huge in Silicon Valley, in Zhongguancun here in China, that kind of thing. So I also think that for college students, because there's always a time lag when it comes to picking your major as opposed to, graduate and finding a job. There's at least 4 years of a time difference there. Therefore, maybe that explains a little bit of why maybe there aren't as many STEM graduates per se. But I also find something interesting here, that is, since technology has become such a major driving force in business, as well as innovation and entrepreneurship and all that, maybe there has been a lot of discussion about technology taking over human jobs and stuff, but actually this might be something that is a note of comfort for humans. That is, maybe there are more jobs created thanks to technology, thanks to those people who are already in the STEM subjects and they're working in the employment market already. And therefore, a lot of new jobs have created, and then they need people with the engineering background or mathematics background to fill those jobs. And even till today, those jobs are not necessarily been filled, or not the qualified people have been found. And also, bear in mind, we're talking about China here. We have a strong tradition of people going into STEM subjects in China. And in high school, there's always more classes that's the 理科班, that are
science major.
Yeah, the young people that will take the stream of Gaokao, or the high school entrance, that would be higher education entrance examination, that are going through the science route. And usually there are less classes of people that would go through the liberal arts subject. So and also I've got figures to back me up here, that is, China already is, but we are in competition with India in this number. That is, we are already number 1 or number 2 biggest country churning out STEM talents. So bear these facts in mind, and still we're seeing a lot of jobs looking for STEM students can't be filled. Then isn't this sort of like a really, actually kind of a positive thing, that the job market is vibrant and it's looking for this part of the talent pool, which they would just grab pretty much anybody who can come in with a diploma as such. So, well, that's my reading of that.
We do have maybe a lot of these STEM majors. Maybe a lot of them part of them, maybe after they graduate, they don't go into traditional jobs. Maybe they decide to start their own thing, to do their own innovation, or to start their own little company. And if we're talking about big companies, in that case, then they're losing out in that sense. And then maybe there are also there are people who actually take on majors not because they really feel like it's something they really want to do. They do it because maybe they were sort of, I don't want to use the word forced into it. They were sort of, I don't know, guided by their guardians or parents to go that direction. And then they do it. They graduate. They're like, Mom and Dad, here, I finished. Happy? Yes. And then they try out something else that they feel that they're truly comfortable and satisfied to do, and maybe go towards a different career path. Because at the end of the day, you can also find engineers and tech guys working in a magazine in the media industry. So they go towards maybe they tend to deviate away from these STEM related industries, and then they go into the liberal arts industries, which is much again less of or maybe there they can find a balance between what they love to do and the job satisfaction they are looking for. And I think maybe that could be one of the reasons, I think.
And when I reflect on this contradiction, one of my understanding might be is that nowadays we are calling for the cutting edge technologies and the talents who are specifically like good at this kind of cutting edge like technologies, because it seems like we have a very large number of STEM major graduates, but how many of them are like specialized in the cutting edge ones? Because maybe now we don't need the general like STEM major graduates, but we need an advanced level of STEM major graduates. Because nowadays, if you check out the report and from the Beijing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics, it shows that after the average annual salary for the 2018 graduates, they broke the 150,000 yuan mark, and the average annual salary of this year's graduates projected to reach a new high, targeting at 181,300 yuan per year per month. And it seems like this they are giving them a very high amount of salary, and also at the same time, so in general, the students, they have like received multiple offers, especially for companies like majored in important fields such as aerospace, aviation, armaments, and electronics. So it's not a general science and engineering majors, but it's more specific, more high level, and more advanced. So maybe we're not in shortage of the general like students, graduates majored in the science subjects, but we are in shortage of those like maybe 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 like number of the really talented graduates.
So maybe there is a higher requirement for the demand for the quality of talents that may get hired, and that could be also what's going on here. And with this kind of discussion, it's kind of easy to fall into that position, sort of signifying that liberal arts students are not really the particularly coveted talent at the moment. What do you think is liberal arts future in this regard?
I don't know. It's not going anywhere. I mean, it's been there, it's still there, and it's going to be there. The question is, it's just like, how attractive is the field going to be in the future to future students and future graduates? I don't know. To be fair, I think it just all depends with how the world is moving, and how we are now combining technology with real life, and how that applies. I think at the end of the day, both engineers, both STEM majors and liberal arts to me are equally important. The difference is the way, depending on the company you work for, also just basically depending on every student's life goal, because some people might really they're very academic, then they do enjoy the life of being a STEM major, because it gives them that satisfaction of being knowledgeable, being able to innovate and solve problems of the world. But some people who like to be sociable, to understand the world around them and to make sense of how everything works, and that's how important the liberal arts are to them. I think to me it's just a sense of what do you want out of your life as a student and as a major. Both of them are equally as important. Without science, we will not be able to sort of innovate or have the things we have these days, but without also the need for having things like arts and for example, we wouldn't be able to take photos and post them on Instagram for people to market their products if we did not have engineering. And if we didn't have that, then engineering would also would be just maybe as useless. So to me, both are okay, both are great. It's just up to the individual taste.
Yeah, for me, since I'm a student in the liberal arts major, I would like to defend major a little bit. It's just like a society, you need men and women, and they're highly complementary. I think the society also needs both major students, because what you are good at or what's your forte actually are quite complementary. We need some people who are super logical, rational, and good at designing all this equipment, engineering stuff. We also need a group of people who can help you to promote what you have created. And we can have like a group of people who are super excellent at communication skills to help you, the world, understand what is the next trend and encourage people to take in to that field. So I think maybe for students graduating from liberal art majors, we are more creative. Sometimes we have better critical thinkings. We are really good at doing presentation or like join like face-to-face interviews. You have this kind of talent because people are different. People all have their different like shining points. So people in liberal arts may have better taste and better maybe artsy like maybe elements. So I think for us, what we need to do is you need to figure out what's your specialty. And because compared to the STEM majors, sometimes it's hard to prove your advantage. Because for the STEM major students, they can prove their achievement through some inventions or their like research findings. But for liberal arts students, it's more about your comprehensive demeanor. So that's just something like you have been accumulated over the years and then make you really outstanding students or talents in this field. So don't lose faith. We still have the future because the society is so inclusive. It needs different talents. So maybe if you can find a job, it just proves that you are not good enough in your major.
And just like a point of observation, I tend to see that students who tend to go for STEM majors are people who are very introverted, people who like to think.
Kind of a stereotype.
Like I said, it's an observation for me.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that's exactly what the situation is, but in my experience and the people I know who are in this, they tend to be people who are not very overly, I wouldn't say outgoing. They are outgoing, of course, but they tend to like to work alone, solve problems, think, strategize, and to them that's what they kind of like. But then when I look at some of my friends who are, for example, and people around me who are in the liberal arts, they tend to be the outgoing type, the talkative, the sociable, because they like that kind of, they like to talk, they like to communicate, stuff like that. And I think that's the beauty about all of this. At least everyone, depending on your personality type, at least we've got careers that can fit anywhere. Everyone can fit in. So I think that's where, to me, my observation goes into. The STEM people, probably the quiet people, the quiet type, and the really loud ones, they tend to go for the liberal arts. But at the end of the day, it's a good world balance.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting observation. And I think why this is particularly relevant today is when you look at Forbes magazine, the FT, or whatever media outlet, it seems like those who are gracing the magazine covers, they're often big bosses of tech startups, and when IPO happens, they're getting the big bucks, and it's getting a lot of attention. And who are these people? Often from STEM backgrounds, so therefore it's in the news a lot. And also,
what about the president?
Oh yeah, and that's something that we see in China quite often as well. So And also, while we're talking about this, is we're talking about the future of education as well. If this is the direction we're going, then maybe coding, something like that, should be more accessible and maybe what all people should learn as young people, immerse themselves in the education system. So, well, let us know what you think about all of that. You can email us at ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com, and we'll write back to you. And we will be back after this break with more roundtable discussion.
Informed opinion and heated debate. Find out what's got China talking, and join us for your roundtable discussion.
You're listening to Roundtable with myself, He Yang, joined by Huang Shen and Nila. Coming up, can self-checkout points end the long queues in supermarkets in China? And this is the Spring Festival travel season as well as shopping season. So as lots of you are getting presents and supplies for the Chinese New Year, don't you want to beat that crowd? How do you do it? We'll get into it. And Roundtable's Heart-to-Heart segment coming your way. That's when we answer your voice questions on the live show. If you are listening to our show on demand, you can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcast and our Qingsong Tiaopin app. And now on Roundtable, we'll continue our discussion. It's an all too familiar scene. You are at the supermarket picking up supplies for the Spring Festival family reunion. Your shopping cart is filled with goods the whole family would enjoy. You just want to pay and leave this consumerism battlefield. The queues of the staffed checkouts are long, and you're in a rush to get out of this stuffy and crowded environment, so you can opt for the speed of self-checkout. Well, what do these here's this debate between self-checkout machines versus human cashier. What do customers prefer?
Well, it depends on the person, but for me, I'm a loyal fan of the self-checkout machines because it's more convenient. Because nowadays, if you walk into the supermarket in Beijing, you can generally see two lines or two different queues. One is for the human cashiers. Usually, they may open 3 or 4 lanes for you, and during the peak hours. And other time, you can also go for the other option, which is the self-checkout machines, and it's really easy to pick up this kind of new machines because all you need to do is just wait in a line. When it's your turn, you just go to one of the self-checkout machine, and there's a touch screen on the desk, and you just simply press the start. And then, for each of the product you selected, there's a package, and there's a barcode on the package. All you need to do is just scan the barcode and through the reader on the desk, and then the price will automatically show up on the screen. And then after you just check out all the products you want to buy, you just simply click checkout, and then you can choose a payment method. But there are some exceptions. So for example, if you want to buy the fresh fruits or vegetables or condiments in bulk, in the bulk packages, which means there's no delicate package or cover of that products. So all you need to do is put them in a plastic bag and there's a special staff help you scale or weigh the thing you buy, and then they give you a price tag on the plastic bag and with a barcode, and all you need to do is present that barcode to the reader again. And it can vary from maybe supermarket to supermarket, because in some supermarket like Jinkelong or maybe Bruno, Yonghui, it's very easy. All you need to do is just use the reader on in their shops, and also when you check out, you can choose whether pay by, I don't know if they can pay by cash, but mostly are paid by mobile payment, or you can even pay by credit card. But for some other supermarkets like Wumei, you have to download an app which is called Duodian, the app, and you need to only by register a member of that app you can use the self-checkout machine. But some people may think, it's too troublesome to download another extra app just to enjoy this self-checkout service. But that app also include other really like user friendly like services. So you may think, oh, it's worthy of downloading that special app, and you may think nowadays more young people prefer to choose the self-checkout machines. But if you really go into the supermarket, you will be wowed by how many maybe middle-aged or older folks they are crazy for those self-checkout machines in China.
So, thank you very much. Huang Shen, she's almost like the investigator of self-checkout machines and methods here in Beijing, in the Beijing market for us.
Yeah.
And after that very comprehensive introduction, Neela, what's your observation here, or what kind of service would you prefer?
I really don't have any anecdotal experience with this, but I have to say, like I've said many times before, when it comes to technology, and especially new technology, I'm never at the forefront of, being among the first people to jump on the bandwagon. I'm the stand behind and watch first, But for me, I have to say, I've noticed a lot of people doing that in the supermarket. I do shop a lot at Carrefour, but I've never tried, and I don't think I'm going to bother anytime soon. One, because I just like not to fumble around with technology. I fear that because I'm always minding other people behind me and how long they have to wait. And also, if the person in front of me is taking much longer because they have no clue where to press, which button to do, they're wasting my time. So for me, I'd rather just go to a traditional checkout and deal with the person, put there your stuff, and then they do it for you. You just give them the money, take your stuff and go away. But I do see the appeal of fast checkouts, but I think part of it, I don't think it's any faster. If you ask me, I don't think so. I think it's just because we think it's technology and then it's faster, but we don't think about, what about the person in front of me is slower, or what if the machine breaks down in the middle of something? There's always something that can go wrong, and if you don't know where's the button to go back, then you have to stand there and find another human to come help you. In the process, also time is being consumed. So for me, I think it's a good thing because it lessens the amount of time people have to stand on the queue, but I don't think it's any faster than using the traditional way.
Very interesting, because your observation is sort of similar to mine, as when I used to live in London, and back in the day, it was when self-checkout points first got popular. And actually here in Beijing, since 2015, it became widely used, these self-checkout points as well. And I remember this was in London when there would be lots of people who don't want to wait in the queue, right? So you go to the machines. Yeah. And then one day it was quite a funny scene, as there were like 6 machines, and 4 of them were mechanically repeating the same line. That is, excessive stuff in the bagging area, excessive stuff in the bagging area. So back in the day, admittedly, that was more than 5 years ago. I guess the machine was just not good enough. And then it's really easy to get confused.
Yeah.
And then so you'll need an assistant to come over to help you with, clearing the bagging area, when actually there was nothing in the bagging area as that, message starts playing, and then you just quickly take the stuff away, but it still goes on forever. So, I find that to be amusing, but also I wonder if this is only hassle because the technology was implemented in an initial stage. As the technology perfects itself, then in theory it should become more efficient.
Definitely, as technology becomes better and better, it might at some point become even much, much faster than the traditional way. My only problem here is not even the machines themselves. My only problem here are the humans operating, checking themselves out. That is my biggest fear, because if somebody's standing there, maybe it's their first time, you don't know. Maybe they're just naturally slow, you don't know. Maybe they kind of forgot to buy something else, or they press the wrong button and they don't know how to go back. That is my worry, because the time they are taking trying to check themselves out is what is important. The reason why a lot of people want to use these checkout machines, or maybe they were invented, number one is to make life more convenient and to increase the speed of checking out after you've bought things. So unless humans, we train ourselves, I think again with time it's just going to become another natural process for us when it comes to dealing with technology. But for now, I think it's also about I think my strategy will be, if I was convinced to use them any day from now, I would go fast forward and look how many people are there waiting. And how many people are on the other side waiting, and then I check how many. Okay, if it's five people, then how much stuff does each person have? Because that also matters. You could have 2 people in the self checkout and 5 people on the other end, but the other end they will check out before the first one finishes because they've got loads and loads of stuff. So I think there's a lot of calculations that I think for me will have to go through my head. And I think also for people who really don't like, sometimes you have these people who just have this thing that when they before they pay, they're just standing there. They're not bagging their things, they're just standing there and staring at the salesperson, and then after that, they're told how much, you have to pay this. That's when they start fumbling to find where their phone is, their wallet is. And if you want to avoid those kinds of people, then I think that's the best part for you. The best choice is to go to self-checkout. I think they both have advantages and disadvantages.
And we've sort of provided our analysis more from the consumer's point of view. What about for companies? It seems like a pretty solid argument for machines, or not. What do you think?
Because for companies, actually, they do prefer to install more self-checkout machines. And on one hand, it's because the size of a self-checkout machine is smaller than traditional, like a main checkout lane. So by saving the space, you can install maybe 20 or even more self-checkout machines, and then you just open maybe 4 to 5 manual checkout lanes. And at the same time, a very important factor is that you can save labor costs. You know how much a person, the labor cost is at the present stage. So by installing such machines, you can help more customers to check out by themselves, and you don't need to hire more people. And also the staff, they may require to take a turnover, or they take a rest maybe every 2 or 3 hours. The machines, they can work there 24 hours. They don't need to take a break. And I think for some people may vary. So if all the customers are very self-disciplined, that they may the shoplifting things, occasions may happen sometimes, because you just doing a checkout by yourself. No one will supervise you, not like the manual checkout lanes. But actually, nowadays the technology is really advanced, because after you check out everything, I don't know, is it applied to all the supermarket, but at least for the supermarket I went to, there's an announcement from the machine. It's, for example, after you check out, you make the transaction, and then there's an announcement saying, the desk, for example, desk 5 has just paid how many yuan, and then he or she purchased how many items. So there's a special person, assistant, and will just stand in the exit of the supermarket, the self-checkout lane, and they will make a very vague calculation, see if this person has paid what he or she bought, and then so this makes sure.
Does it announce every single thing you bought?
No. That's a way to protect your privacy. That's why some people, they may prefer to do the self checkout, because if you buy something that you feel it's a little embarrassed to show to the cashier, so in this way you do a checkout by yourself, so no other people will see what you have bought, and then you can protect your own privacy. And then I think most of people nowadays, they're very self-disciplined. They won't just trying to save that 2 yuan or 10 yuan and to risk their reputation. Or I think people nowadays are more matured and more self-disciplined.
Very interesting.
Very true, but there's always that one person in society that always tends to go against, the grain. Yeah. So I think that's also another problem, but I'm sure that's not a huge problem, like shoplifting. Some of it could be, innocently you put in a you put in a sweet or something extra and you didn't realize, you didn't swipe it. But some of it, the people who actually out there just go and do it intentionally. They're like, okay, so I'm not gonna spend, I want to buy or get things worth 200 quid, but I only want to pay 150. There are people out there who could do stuff like that. But
yeah. Also, you guys bring to an interesting turn of this discussion, because just listening to what Huang Shen portrayed to us, I wonder how this affects the shopping experience. It's almost like if you have someone who's kind of watching or almost waiting to catch unsavory behavior, that kind of thing, it's almost like you don't trust me. And
no, that person is not just standing beside you. So there's, for example, there's a square of place and full with the machines, and the person will just stand at the exit. So he's like in a position that can take an overlook of all the situation.
Bird's eye view.
And help you find the back button.
Yeah, and the announcement won't just release from your machine. There's a special machine just installed next to the exit. And all your purchase will only show up in that special machine. I hope I made it clear, but it's very
I thought they were the first time you said this, I thought they'd make an announcement the same way they do it at the bank.
It's almost like, it reminds me of some of the hotels you visit, like after you pay for your staying and the
minibar
and
registers.
Then so basically you finish payment and you're ready to leave, right? And then for some hotels they would just like let you go and politely like say goodbye and hope you come to stay with us again next time, and that's it. And there are some other hotels that are like, hey, please wait, we need to go up to your room and check if you've stolen the light bulb, kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it varies from country to country and hotel to hotel. But, the latter, I'm like, I'm never going to stay with you again because I'm not going to steal your light bulb and just, that's like the first, or take extra toiletry or whatever, So, I mean, there's that consumer experience kind of factor too. And also, if we look at the overall customer experience, do you think that having the self-checkout thing would boost the whole experience? Or
I think it definitely will. Look at the way before ATMs were invented. I look at it the same way the existence of ATMs came into being, such that you didn't have to necessarily go and line up in a bank just to deposit or withdraw cash or print out your bank statement. I think that with time people will embrace it. It's just a matter of like figuring out the technology and it having to run smoothly. Then a lot of people will actually prefer it, including myself.
And here, although we talk about the long queues and whatnot, but there's a little voice inside me that's kind of whispering, hey, supermarkets, you should be happy that there are still queues in your supermarket, because there's a whole bunch of people who are simply just shopping online now.
Yeah.
that are not even setting foot into a venue outside of their home. So I guess I'll ask you guys to do a little bit of crystal balling in that regard. I mean, do you see that maybe this self-checkout point thing is going to be a thing of the past in the future as well, since, we've got a whole wide other, made a huge option that is called e-commerce?
Well, I'm quite confident in the brick and mortar like supermarkets, because definitely there are a certain amount of ingredients you have to purchase from the physical supermarkets. Because for me, I do love e-commerce, but I'll buy different things from different channels. For example, if I want to buy the fresh ingredients, and I will definitely go to a supermarket, because you can seeing is believing, right? You can check out all the vegetables, are they still fresh? And also you can check out when you just go through all the columns of the ingredients, it kind of give you inspiration of what you want to cook tonight. And usually if you have a supermarket next to your neighborhood, you will definitely go there every day before you cook, or just maybe buy the groceries like once a week. And for the sauces, maybe the condiments I prefer to buy from Taobao or other e-commerce platforms, because they give you more options. You can buy lots of imported stuff and from the e-commerce platform, and usually they're at a cheaper price. But the con is that usually the delivery may take a longer period of time. For example, if today I just want to cook chicken breast, I can just directly go to supermarket and buy the chicken breast. But if you want to order delivery from some maybe e-commerce platforms, it may take a week or 2 days or 3 days. Except that you have been covered in the region of like maybe Hema Shengxian. They can deliver to your doorstep maybe in 1 hour or very short time. But in general, so the delivery period is relatively longer in those e-commerce platforms.
Yeah. And I do agree with you in that aspect as well, because at the end of the day, there are people who look at shopping in a physical store as very therapeutic. That includes me. I do enjoy walking into a supermarket, walking around and checking out what's new, and just, going around the aisles. And to me, that's very therapeutic. I come across new stuff that otherwise I wouldn't have known. Also, in the process, I get to count my steps. It's a different feeling when you shop online, especially for groceries. It's different for me if I went to a supermarket to buy a piece of steak and ordered it online. Like you said, especially, there are things that you cannot just buy online. If I want to eat steak now, I need to go to the supermarket now and get it. I can't go online and say, I'll wait for a week to have it. No, I want it now. So I think those are some of the reasons that these brick and mortar stores are not going to go away. But definitely we're just going to see the whole industry sort of change, and maybe supermarkets might reinvent and combine the aspect of online shopping versus brick and mortar. We're already seeing supermarkets that sort of now operate also partly as restaurants, where you get both ways. You go shopping and then you sit down and have a nice meal with your family, your friends, and some people do enjoy that, because when you can eat at home, but the experience while you eat outside is very different.
Yeah, just by listening to you guys, I would say you are both very shrewd shoppers, and since we have been living in the e-commerce age for a few years by now, and I think you got to trust the wisdom of the shopper, because he or she will always pick out whatever's the best suiting their preference. And it seems like the best of two worlds, online and offline, both we can enjoy. And you're listening to Roundtable. Coming up next, Roundtable's Heart-to-Heart segment.
You ask.
We answer.
Roundtable. Heart-to-Heart.
This week, who's got a question for Roundtable?
Hello, Roundtable. My name is Haru. I'm from the USA. The question I have is about sports, music, and the arts for children when they're younger, or should that wait until they're older? What do you think?
So for kids, should they devote time and energy to studying music or engage in sports, these kind of things, when so much of the education is focused on reading, writing, and mathematics, and those things that pretty much confine them to the desk with the book in front of them?
I think both sports and music programs offer many benefits that can also help your children for future success. And I don't think it is a rule on when you should have your kids start maybe participating in sports or music. Because let's look at sports. Sports have been known to, improve the physical skills like coordination and balance in your children. They also help them learn teamwork, because a lot of, especially if they're involved in team sports like football, baseball, basketball, these are skills that are really important, that will not only help them as they grow up in the social life, but also give them that discipline to work with others when they grow up. And also, when it comes to music, on the other hand, music programs have been said to provide many of the same benefits as participating in sports. For example, teamwork, discipline, focus, and also just learning how to have fun. Now, a music program is also said to improve your child's thinking skills and physical coordination. Personally, my favorite one, because I did music when I was a child and I still love today, and I think one of the best things I learned how to from just growing up listening and participating in music was learning how to express my feelings and emotions, and also having that empathetic and sympathetic emotion towards others. So basically, learning to be aware of your surroundings and learning to be aware of your self-emotions as well. And that's helpful, I think, when you're dealing with people and you're working in a teamwork, and basically understanding how to deal with different people.
For me, I think this is a question you should ask your kid, because if he or she is in the age that it's easy for you to communicate with him or her, because when you think about what should I ask my kid to learn, music, sports, or other kind of interests, it's depend on his or her talents, because different people have their different interests. So at least you need to encourage your kid to have the passion for that specific interest. Then he could pay the efforts and time to further be more involved into this field, because compared to academic learning and also develop the hobbies, you need to find a balance. So I think developing a hobby is really good for your kid, but don't make it turn into a task or a pressure for your kid. Yeah, and I think it's your job to encourage your kid to find what's the true hobby he or she is really interested in. But I do think it's really good to develop a kind of hobby, because I'm a little bit regret of escaping the ballet dancing classes when I was little, because after you grow up, you kind of know actually all the things you learn from childhood will benefit to your future. So, but the thing is how you can encourage your kid to find it interesting.
That's really, really a very good point, Huangshen. Because what you just said is your parents used to send you to a ballet class, but you skipped a few classes.
My dad helped me.
Yeah. Cool dad, I guess. But now you think that maybe it's better to dad should have just kept you in the class instead of helped you to escape from them.
Yeah, maybe instead of blaming myself for the laziness, I prefer to blame my dad.
It's not too late. It's not too late. You can still pick up ballet from where you left.
But since the laziness is in my bones, it's hard for me to pick it up again.
Yeah, so I think the really important or most important lesson that you get from playing sports or picking up a music instrument is learning persistence, dedication, and patience. And actually picking up a skill, it's never an easy thing. It's through a lot of practice and kind of hardship from time to time to really be able to master it. And that's an important lesson to learn in life. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about these advantages, but I guess we don't have time for that discussion. But a really also crucial part of this is who's going to provide this kind of education, right? And in many countries, many families, it is up to private education to provide, to answer that need. And that becomes a bit of an inequality issue sometimes, because not all families can provide that kind of education. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on Roundtable. Bye.